The sound of cicadas filled the late afternoon air, the golden sun spilling through the pine trees like melted honey. A white motorcycle gleamed between the trunks, abandoned and silent. And there, against the rough bark of an old pine, a man, big, tattooed and breathing hard, was chained tight with rusted links biting into his arms. His leather vest bore the fearsome emblem Hell's Angels. His head hung low, sweat and blood tracing the hard lines of his face. But it wasn't the biker's rough look that made the scene unforgettable. It was the small, dirt-smudged boy standing before him, wide-eyed, barefoot and trembling. Before we continue this powerful story of redemption and courage, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the good that still lives inside people, please take a second to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with someone who needs to believe in hope again. The boy's name was Tommy, only 8 years old, wandering through the woods behind his grandmother's house looking for adventure. He often imagined himself a hero from the comic books he adored, brave, fearless, rescuing people who needed help. But nothing in his short life had prepared him for what he found that day. The man before him was massive, his arms covered in tattoos, his vest marked with a skull and wings that screamed danger. To most he'd look like trouble itself. Yet there was something else in his face, pain, not the pain of a wound, but of regret, of something broken deep inside. Tommy's first instinct was to run, but then he saw it, the man's wrists, bruised and raw beneath the heavy chains. His breathing was slow and shallow. He wasn't yelling or cursing, he was silent, as if he had already given up. Something inside Tommy stirred. Maybe it was the way his late father used to say, "Son, sometimes even the roughest people are just lost souls looking for light." The boy hesitated, his small fingers brushing the cold metal chain. The man opened, his eyes startling Tommy with their piercing blue color. For a second their worlds collided, one born into innocence, the other hardened by the road and the mistakes of a lifetime. Tommy saw fear in those eyes, not anger. The biker saw something he hadn't seen in decades, trust. The man's name was Ray Steele Harlow, a veteran Hell's Angel known for his temper and a past full of violence, but also loyalty. Days earlier he had turned his back on his chapter after refusing to join a brutal raid on a rival club. Betrayal wasn't forgiven easily. His own brothers had chained him to that tree in the middle of nowhere, leaving him to face whatever came first, death or redemption. Tommy didn't know any of that. All he saw was a man in pain. He tried pulling the chains, but they were too tight. He searched the ground, found a stick, then another, trying to pry them loose. The man whispered something, his voice weak but steady. "Kid, don't. Just go home." But Tommy shook his head. In his young heart, he felt a strange duty, as if leaving this man would haunt him forever. He ran back home, bursting into his grandmother's shed. There he found an old rusted toolbox, grabbed a hammer and a small bolt cutter. He dragged them through the woods, tripping and panting until he returned. His hands shook as he worked on the chains. The sun was sinking low, and mosquitoes buzzed around them, but Tommy didn't stop. Bit by bit, the chains began to give way. Finally, with one last twist, the metal snapped. Ray dropped to his knees, free but stunned. For a long moment he just stared at the boy, this tiny, mud-covered child who had done what no one else dared. His voice cracked when he spoke. "Why'd you help me?" Tommy just shrugged. "You looked like you needed it." Those simple words hit harder than any blow he'd ever taken. Ray stumbled to his bike, his body weak but his heart heavier than ever. He wanted to ride off, to disappear, but when he turned to look at the boy again, something inside him broke open. He remembered his own son, gone because of choices he made long ago. For years he had buried that guilt under tattoos, fights and whiskey. But now, standing there in the fading light, he realized he'd been chained far longer than those few hours at the tree. That night, Ray rode back to his chapter's camp, his mind burning with something he hadn't felt in years, purpose. The men laughed when he returned, calling him the ghost that wouldn't die. But he didn't come for revenge, he came for forgiveness. Standing before 2,000 riders at their annual meet a week later, Ray took the microphone. The crowd fell silent as he began to speak. He told them about the boy, how a kid with no reason to care had saved him when his own brothers wouldn't, How kindness from a stranger had done what fear and loyalty never could. It had freed him. He looked out over the crowd of hardened men and women, their faces masked by leather and steel, and said, "We think strength comes from the road, from power. But that kid, he showed me real strength comes from mercy." For a moment the sea of bikers was still. Then one by one they began to clap. Some cheered. Some lowered their heads in silence. Ray walked off the stage, tears burning behind his eyes. That day, something changed within the club. A message spread through their ranks. No matter how lost you are, there's always a way back. Weeks later, Ray returned to that same tree. He found Tommy playing near the woods again, this time with a small wooden cross he'd built and placed near the roots. Ray asked him what it was for. The boy smiled shyly. "It's for people who got stuck but found a way out." Ray knelt down, his voice breaking as he said, "You saved more than my life, kid. You saved my soul." From that day on, Ray rode with a new patch on his vest, not the skull of his past, but a small angel's wing with the letters TH beneath it. Tommy Harlow, his symbol of second chances. Months later, when Ray passed away in a quiet accident on the road he loved, over 2,000 riders came to his funeral. Among them was a boy, now wearing a tiny leather jacket, standing beside the bike Ray had left him. He didn't cry. He just smiled, looking up at the sky, whispering, "Ride free, Uncle Ray." And in that moment, everyone there understood. Sometimes angels don't come with wings. Sometimes they come with dirty hands, small hearts, and the courage to care. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe, because somewhere out there, another person is waiting to be unchained by kindness. Comment below, what would you have done if you were in little Tommy's place?